France, 1803. The embers of revolution still glowed across Europe, and the world of commerce was rebuilding itself from chaos. In this fragile new order, Jean-Baptiste Say, a former merchant-turned-thinker, published Traité d'économie politique, a treatise on political economy. He was neither a radical nor a bureaucrat, but something rarer, a moral optimist of enterprise. Say believed that wealth was not the accumulation of gold, but the circulation of value. He drew from Adam Smith's ideas, but added a distinctly French sensibility, clarity, proportion, and belief in creative industry. To him, the entrepreneur was the central figure of economic life, the one who perceives needs, organizes resources, and transforms imagination into goods. Where others saw trade as static, Say saw motion, a self-regulating network of exchanges. His insight would become known as Say's Law. Products are paid for with products. In this law lay the seed of one of the most enduring and misunderstood ideas in economic history. At the core of Say's thinking was a simple but revolutionary proposition. Production itself is the source of demand. When goods are created, incomes are generated. When incomes are spent, other goods are purchased. Thus, every act of production sets in motion a chain of consumption. Say rejected the mercantilist fear of gluts, the idea that markets could be chronically oversupplied. He argued that general overproduction is impossible because supply and demand are two sides of the same transaction. Crises, he said, arise not from inherent imbalances, but from temporary misallocation, poor coordination, policy failure, or hoarding of money. To modern ears, Say's law sounds almost naive, yet it was the theoretical foundation for a century of economic stability and policy. Where Marx saw contradiction, Say saw adjustment. Where Malthus saw limits, Say saw elasticity. He believed human ingenuity would always redirect surplus into new opportunity. Say elevated the entrepreneur to heroism. Long before the modern startup or industrial capitalist, he recognized the role of the innovator, the individual who combines labor, capital, and knowledge to create value. For Say, entrepreneurship was not speculation. It was coordination, a form of intelligence applied to the economy. This was a profound shift. Classical economists spoke of labor, land, and capital as impersonal forces. Say added the human element, the agent who mobilizes them. He described entrepreneurs as the prime movers in production, whose judgment and risk-taking transform potential into progress. This insight foreshadowed modern business economics and innovation theory. It was Say's entrepreneur, not Smith's invisible hand, who gave the market its heartbeat, a visionary force turning supply into structure, chaos into motion. To Say, entrepreneurship was both moral and mechanical, the art of making equilibrium real. Say's optimism met fierce resistance. Thomas Malthus warned that production could outpace consumption, that gluts were real and cyclical. Say countered that such crises were not failures of production, but failures of coordination and confidence. To him, the cure was not less supply, but freer markets. For more than a century, Say's view prevailed, until the Great Depression shattered its logic. Factories stood silent, workers jobless, and goods unsold. John Maynard Keynes resurrected Malthus's warning, arguing that demand could indeed collapse and drag supply down with it. Say's law, once a pillar of orthodoxy, was overturned by Keynesian economics. Yet even Keynes respected Say's intellectual architecture. The idea that the economy is a circulatory system, not a battlefield. modern macroeconomics still oscillates between them. Say's belief in production-led recovery and Keynes's faith in demand-led stimulus. Together they form the tension at the heart of every economic policy debate. Jean-Baptiste Say died in 1832, but his law endures in subtle forms. Every supply chain, every startup ecosystem, every productivity model carries echoes of his optimism, that human creativity perpetually regenerates demand. In the digital age, Say's law reappears as the logic of innovation, new technologies creating markets that didn't exist before. From microprocessors to renewable energy, the act of creation remains its own justification. Yet Say would have cautioned modern economies against hubris. Even he admitted that the market's harmony required trust, competition, and access, the invisible virtues behind the visible flow. His legacy is less about perfection than faith. Faith that human ingenuity is the ultimate renewable resource. For Say, the economy was not a system of control, but a living organism, a dance of production and imagination where motion itself is prosperity.